Hey everyone, what's up? You know, I did watch the Boots versus Lima fight, and there's been a bunch of people that have opinions on that fight. And, the guy wanted tune-ups for a reason. We've been talking about Boots for years on this channel. Those videos are still up on this. I don't want to join the hate parade on hating on Duran and his Boots, just like when I told everybody about Gervonta Tank Davis. I told you he's going to get exposed by a cherry pick gone wrong. And it wasn't too long after that, but then I saw everybody started to get on Gervonta Tank Davis. So I didn't really want to join that one as well. But on this channel, I do like to talk matchups. And I was pulled into a proxy beta male race war, but it was one that I didn't really want to participate in. And I understand there's a lot of people, they're in their feelings and they feel butthurt about things. And I've gone through this process myself about taking accountability and responsibility in my life. And it's not a fun little thing, There are things that will make you feel better temporarily, but again, they don't solve issues. But regardless of all that, I don't really want to jump on the Duran in his Boots hate train. I called him out well before everybody today that's calling him out is calling him out. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I don't have a big channel, but again, I don't really do this for the clicks, views, and likes. Duran in his Boots, before the Canelo fight was announced for Terrence Crawford, I was gearing up for the Duran in his Boots versus Terrence Crawford fight, and I stated it before. I told people the Madrimov fight's harder for Terrence Crawford than Boots. I even told you some pretty accurate details that ended up happening for that Madrimov versus Terrence Crawford fight, which I find funny. I didn't go as extensive as I did for like the Spence, the Porters, and of course the Canelo fight, scenarios that I did. Just a couple of videos, for the Madrimov fight, I gave you an early prediction. And again, per usual, I feel it's pretty accurate, just like all my other predictions. But the Vergil Ortiz versus Duran in his Boots, I keep telling people the most important thing when it comes to boxing is the mental. The mental is more important than the physical. Ortiz does have the experience. He has fought the tougher people. Although they're kind of messing with his little resume as well. They're giving him guys coming off of losses, following Terrence Crawford's, bootstraps or whatever, coattails, whatever you want to call it, And I would say in his past few fights, they're also helping him, assisting him when he gets knocked down, things like that. Duran Boots in it should be the favorite if these two do meet up and fight. But again, boxing, it's always, it's TMZ drama. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? And boxing, for the most part, the analytical aspect of it has kind of been, it's fell through. You typically, when you go on these channels, it's more so a TMZ drama. A lot of people are like Charlemagne the God. You're here just gossiping and talking crap. And on this channel, I like to keep it more towards the matchup. But again, the mental aspect is who's going to fold. Are you going to fall for Duran Ennis's Boots, fake it till you make it act? If you do, you're going to lose and you're probably going to get knocked out. But if you don't fall for it, if you actually show some gumption, just like old boy that fought Gervonta Tank Davis, if you don't back down, you'd be amazed the effect this can have on fighters. What's his name does have the tools to actually beat and knock out Duran in his Boots. The problem is the Duran doesn't have a chin like you guys think he does. If you guys watch boxing as long as me, there was this fighter called Juan Lopez. And, when they were giving him favorable matchmaking and things like that, he seemed unstoppable. He let guys always, hit his chin, just like you see Boots and things like that. But we eventually got to the point where Juan Lopez did eventually get exposed, and it was sad to see. Now, part of that came with the fact that he was partying with Tito Trinidad and things like that. You're already drinking, things like that. He did have skill. He did, he's a very exciting fighter to watch. You know what I'm saying? And today you don't really hear much about him anymore. But same deal. He had all the hype. He had all the backing, networks were more favorable towards Juan Lopez than they were Yuriorkis Gamboa. And I always wanted to see those two fight, but they always kept them away from each other. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that would have always been a great matchup. But either way, both guys took the career paths that they took. For Gamboa, he met a guy named Terrence Crawford, of course. You know, he was undefeated, whatever else. A lot of people felt like he did marginally good against Terrence Crawford, especially in the first few rounds. And of course, people still to this day use that when Terrence Crawford was showboating, you know, and Gamboa actually landed some crap on him and it hurt him. Yeah, the dude had his hands down by his waist. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big dude. I'm 6'3", again, 79-inch reach. You know, as a collegiate athlete, if I let like a 140-pound guy, you know what I'm saying, get a free shot, it's going to hurt me. You know what I'm saying? That's just the truth of it, you know. But in boxing, people always over-exaggerate things. And again, that it's more about feelings and emotions than it is the analytical aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? Juan Ma, again, though, you know, he was the guy that had the network's backing. He was the guy that they were, you know, kind of protecting more. And plus, he had Tito Trinidad's backing. And I believe that's what really destroyed his career is when he started, you know, hanging out and partying with Tito Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? You're out here doing who knows what. You know what I'm saying? You're drinking, you're hanging out with this dude who's pretty much seen as a demigod over in Puerto Rico. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, but it was same crap. You know, he would let guys just punch him, whatever else. And we see this with Boots as well. I do. Smart money, of course, would be on Boots, but it would not shock me or surprise me if Vergil Ortiz is able to pull off the upset against Geronimo's Boots. And all you got to do, once again, is not back down and not fall for the fake it till you make it act. When he hits you, Crawford knows this, you know, you hit him back harder. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's a mental game more than anything else. Vergil Ortiz, his problem is he likes to, he's a slugger, you know. I don't know if you guys watch baseball or whatever, but you got guys that always try to go for the home run, you know. And his idea, since he doesn't really know how to box and set up his shots all that great, although when he's patient, he does. You know, when he was younger, he used to be more smarter in the way that he fought. You know what I'm saying? He had this nice little, he would first establish his jab, and he's got a wonderful jab. And it's really tall and lanky. And then off that jab, you know, he would start to hook off the jab, whether to the body or to the head, you know. But it all started with just the jab first, establishing your jab first, you know. And he's kind of grown more into a slugger, you know what I'm saying? Boots gets these little lucky shots. They're not lucky. I mean, he's talented. Like I said, he's got a talent that's very good. I'm not going to sit here and just hate on Boots like he's a bum. You know what I'm saying? But like the George Sosa fight, for example, you know, a no-hoper that went in there and had him slumped on the ropes. You know what I'm saying? You know, if that would have been somebody else, of course, they would have finished the fight in that round. Boots was able to recover or whatnot, but we've seen some other kind of red flags that pop up in Geronimo's Boots fights, you know, and he, as much crap as people want to talk about guys like Mean Machine and whoever else, you know, again, I think if he were fighting more higher caliber guys who could punch, you know, and are more dangerous like a Mean Machine, you know, these controlled situations, you know, they would be more apparent just like they were for what's his name, Vergil Ortiz. But again, it's just going to be who mentally folds in this fight. You know, I see it as a 55-45 scenario for Boots. I think either guy, if they do get the win, it's going to be more likely a KO, a TKO type scenario than it is going to be like go to the all 12 rounds and whatever else, you know, and someone ekes out with a decision. Both guys, they kind of have the same mindset. They're both kind of young, you know, and they both want to do some crazy things that they don't really need to. But again, if Vergil Ortiz went back to his early fight style where let's establish the jab first, then once people are so worried about that jab, he can hook off the jab, whether to the body or to the head, or You understand? Because it's his motion and how he does it. It's kind of similar to like how Floyd used to set up punches against opponents. You know, when he does that lunge in, and I'm talking about Vergil Ortiz again, and people, they're, oh, here comes a jab. Well, he'll eventually get to the point where, oh, well, here's the right hook to the body, or, you know, the straight right, or to the left hook to the body. You know what I'm saying? But that first came with establishing the jab, and he's kind of lost more patience. And I'm pretty sure when he gets hit and he starts getting flustered, things like that, you know, okay, that throws him more into a fight or flight type mindset. And then again, he starts slugging for the home run, you know, instead of letting the pitcher, you know, throw out his arsenal, you know, making the pitcher work, you know, this is a guy, okay, you know, first pitch I see that's good, I'm just going to try to swing for the home run. That's really Vergil Ortiz's weakness. You know, he does have a good boxing acumen. He does have a pretty good boxing IQ. But I think if he does allow Jaron in his boots to win, it's just going to be because he mentally folded. You know what I'm saying? This Lubin fight, I guess, is coming up, but that's not going to be much of a telling fight. Lubin was a very good fighter himself, and they rushed Lubin too fast. You know, they gave him Jermel Charlo, who was like 28, and Lubin was like 21 years old, dude. That was totally unnecessary by the team. That was a huge gamble. And this is pretty much offset Lubin's career. Lubin still has some skills and things like that, but you can tell it gets to a certain point once you lose and things like that, that type of negative, you know, thoughts will creep in as you're starting to get hit and everything else. It is good that these guys are finally starting to fight each other. I know Boots is 28 years old. I don't know how old Vergil is. Maybe he's around the same age, you know. It'd be a good fight for both guys. I don't think either guy should get knocked for taking this fight, whoever loses, you know. But that's just the nature of the game today. People want to be undefeated, and once you do lose, it does affect you, unless you're like a Canelo or someone like that. But, you know, I think it'll be a pretty good fight. Boots, again, people are saying what they're saying about Boots for a reason, and it is garnered, you know what I'm saying? It is, you know, valid, you know. And Vergil Ortiz, you know, this is another guy. He hasn't been emailed the belts like a drawn in his boots or whatever, but, you know, it's a good fight. I think it's worth building, you know, it's worth making, but we'll see if it actually goes down, because in today's sport of boxing, crap happens all the time. You know, this Fundora versus Keith Thurman, although Keith Thurman is stupid, this guy's been injury prone his whole career, and he wants to talk crap against Sebastian Formella, or Fundora, sorry. That Sebastian Formella was the guy that, what's his name, Sean Porter beat. But Sebastian Fundora, you know, Keith Thurman clearly just wants a paycheck. This is another thing I notice about these certain type of fighters. You know, when they need a check, they'll come out and then they'll fight and they're hungry, and then they'll go back into obscurity again and take however much time off of boxing and whatever else, you know. And these are people, they have plenty of opportunities to stay busy. They just don't want to stay busy. You know, once they get their check again, they're fine, and then they can go and do their thing. You know, Keith Thurman, he needs to really just be quiet, you know. This is a guy that postponed a fight because of a car wreck. I don't know if he did get in a car wreck. Sean Porter's father back in the day, they didn't find the information where this dude actually got in a car wreck. So again, as soon as Spence beat Brook, it was like a day after this dude came out with his elbow, and you know, his elbow looked all screwed up and everything, and it just, and you know, these guys, they do this crap all the time. You know, Spence ducked a rematch with Crawford. You know, with the PBC, you got to watch out with these guys. You know, but that's all I got to say for now. It just turned into a ramble. Both guys have, Vergil Ortiz or Boots, have a good chance at beating the other. They really do. It's just going to be who folds. And I see Boots, he's still more of the poker face type of guy. You know, although he's a guy I would never trust at face value for his word or what anything he says. You know, that poker face, that fake it till you make it crap, it does work today, and it does help out certain group of people today, you know, and that just might be enough, plus with his talent to get the job done versus Vergil. But if Vergil doesn't fall for that crap, you know what I'm saying, you could easily beat Drawn in his boots. That's all I really got to say. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.